All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ Podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board, for the board. We hope that you enjoy. All right, welcome to the KissFAQ Podcast. I'm your host, Julian Gill. Today, we've got a reduced crowd because we are back in our usual window. We got the voice of reason, 69th Blizzard Ken.
Hey.
Marcus Almighty Mark.
Greetings.
And in the comments, we got Ronnie Parker, Thomas Altop, Austin Newland, and whomever may join us eventually. We're going to be calling out a lot of names today because this episode is going to be about topics from the board, but there's one topic in particular that rose to it this week, and it was Ask Admin Julian Anything. And I decided, I'd be willing to play, but only if it could include my friends here. So we're going to go through a bunch of the questions that posters on the FAQ posited for me, and the ones that apply also to these guys, they're going to pontificate on. So if you're really bored and you're on the board, you're going to get an overdose of pontifications from us. David Donnelly, good to see you. I'm coming out to England, by the way. Booked my flights today, so maybe get to see you.
Nice.
Wolf of Nature, Gregory Pegg, thank you for joining us, and thank you for everyone who joins us live and watches our episodes each week. Inner Sanctum this week, Budokan, 1988. Andrew and I had a great deal of fun with that one, and we've already got people chiming with their corrections, so check it out and see what we got wrong. And if not, just watch the video again, because it was a really fun video to recap. And we got one more episode in this first series, or season if you want to call it, and then we'll be taking a break from that. Mark, do you got an update or anything on your Project Gemini album shipments? I know you've had other distractions.
Yeah, as you probably heard, I'm sure most people already know that I had to put my dog down. He had a bit of an accident and he really screwed up his back, and it just got worse and worse as the days went by, so we had to put him down. But for people who have ordered stuff, I have good news, which is great in a time like this, especially for me. All the U.S. orders, for the exception of 2, because they were just ordered not like a couple of days ago, are now en route to you. And I've gotten word back from my U.S. guy that he's already sent them all, so they are en route to you. People who are in Canada who are still waiting for some, I apologize. The recent events has kind of stalled my running to the post office, but I will get your stuff to you very soon. But U.S. people, that's the one beauty about this situation, is that the U.S. stuff is out of my hands and in the hands of somebody who doesn't have any sort of real things going on that would delay him. So everything is en route to the U.S. people. In fact, a lot of people have been messaging me saying, "Hey, I got my record, yay!" So that's good news, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And if anything, the situation kind of opens up a little bit more time for me to do some other things. So there will be, more stuff coming down the pipe. But I need a little bit of me time right now until I start thinking about that. But the good news is that the records are going to everybody, and you should be getting them very soon, especially if you're living in the United States. And if you're living in Europe, especially in the UK, they will be sent out to you very, very soon. And I do have a few that I need to send out there. So patience, please.
Awesome. Thank you for the update. All right. So Kiss Scandinavia, this is all your fault. You're the one who posted Ask Julian, and people chimed in. I did actually say I was game to do this because, sometimes it's fun to see what people throw at you and just go for it. So let's jump straight in. And Ozone 1978, how has your opinion of each original member changed over the years since you first became a fan until 2023? Well, for me, that's easy because in 1985, I was a teenager with a single parent, a mom, and I thought Paul Stanley was the coolest big brother that I could ever possibly hope to have. And boy, has that opinion changed. Kiss, that lineup for me, or each original member, so I can't even talk about the lineup that I became a fan of. But Peter Criss was an enigma, and that certainly changed. That now I think he's brilliant. And Team Catman, Team Green, I drink the Kool-Aid. I always liked Peter Criss's music anyway. So my opinion of him improved because he was out of the picture and out of the scene in '85. Ace, same goes for him to a certain extent because he was coming back at the same time. So he's a little mysterious. And I all the years that he was gone and kind of hiding. And then Gene, I'm not sure if I had an opinion of him in 1985, because I know I mock how he looks a lot at the time during that period, because he just had a very difficult time adjusting to the role outside of the makeup, though I didn't know that at the time. I just thought he looked ludicrous. If I had known who Arthur Kane was, I would have thought that Gene was an Arthur Kane type character in the group. But I have a lot more respect for him, I guess, these days, because I now understand the shared immigrant story that we both have in the States. And, a lot of the things that he kind of goes on about that people roll their eyes at, about American dreams and gymnasiums and would you like fries with that? I've kind of lived and experienced. So I kind of have a bit more respect for him outside of Mr. Wagging Tongue. Ken, what about you? For the originals? How does it change from when you first discovered the group to the end?
Well, it changed a lot because at the beginning, you didn't know who they were. Really, not much at all about their backgrounds or anything. It kind of kept a lot of it secret, and some of it, were lies back then. And because you didn't see their faces either. It was all that, the mystique and all that kind of stuff. So as they got older and as I got older, I start finding more things out about them. And then I think things, I felt okay about all of them and everything. But then you start learning more and more, and then you hear things in interviews and things like that. Later on, maybe up around 90 or so, or I don't know when it started. I know, for instance, Paul was didn't seem the person that kind of used to, I guess, hold back his comments. He just let it fly, kind of thing, after a while, regarding other band members, former band members, such as Ace, because that kind of was weird. And as time, had gone on until the end, up to recent, I just felt he's kind of he has a definite nasty side to him, or mean side, or and I don't know. We've talked about it before on here, so that's one thing. And then Gene. There's some things that he said too that bother me, and things he's done, but not as much as Paul. I think Gene is a genuine nice guy, really, and I know he's charitable and all that kind of stuff. But when I met him, nothing. It just very, very nice person, and I like his work ethic. Definitely. I mean, I think you can tell that he, even going all the way back, his work ethic has been great. He's still doing it on stage because he enjoys it. He doesn't have to do it. He's not doing it. I don't think he's making that much money going on these shows that he's doing. I think it's more about the enjoyment of rocking out, and that's what he wants to do. Ace and Peter. Actually, I found more respect for both. Even Ace, he quit drinking and all that kind of stuff. I think that's a great thing. I think it's it's a tough thing to stop doing. Anything like that, any addictions. Even my addiction to Kiss, maybe that's a tough one too. But then there's Peter. I think it's great that you read his book on one hand, but then you see what he's done after the fact, where he's taken the high road. on a lot of things. He doesn't get into the little nitpicking fights between the band members. It's not worth it for him, you know. He just wants to live his life and enjoy it, you know, the rest of his life. And I respect that. I think that's really, you know, good. So more respect to Peter. Always respected, you know, respected all of them. You know, you can't. They do. They've done stupid things. We've all done stupid things throughout our lives, and but hopefully you make up for them in some way.
All right, Mark, fellow Asylumite, how's your opinion of the originals changed since 1985?
Well, when I was younger, obviously, like I said 1,000 times, my older sister sort of introduced me to Kiss. And of course, when you're young and you get introduced to them, you think that they're everything in a slice of bread. And at the same time, you know, they're amazing, you know. So, but, you know, as I started getting into music myself and started getting into bands and stuff like that, my opinion of them started changing, because while I was never in a band like Kiss, like of that stature, but the sort of the structure and the way things run in its core form is very similar from band to band. I mean, there has to be dedication, there has to be commitment, there has to be, you know, teamwork for it to work no matter what. And, you know, some of my opinions have changed of some of these people over the years. I mean, the one thing I have to agree with is I think Peter Criss in years now has really taken the smart approach to this and has, you know, just living his life, not, you know, enjoying the time he has now, you know, enjoying the people that are around him. He has like an obvious circle of people that he deals with now. And, you know, he's having a good time with that, and all the power to him, because especially when you get up to that age, you know, stress is not a thing you want to be surrounded by, or drama. You know, I can only imagine being in that situation, you know, and having stress on top of that, you know. I mean, so I think that he's doing a good job kind of staying out of that. You know, Paul and Gene, I have respect for them in the sense that, you know, they kept, you know, well, Paul especially kept the boat afloat when nobody else seemed to give a shit about the band. And being in a band myself many times and feeling sometimes like I was the only one who gave a shit about it at one point, I can understand that feeling, and, you know, having it on your shoulders. And then, you know, when things are going good, you know, it's all of a sudden we're doing a great job. But when it's not going good, you fucked it up. You know what I mean? So I kind of understand his approach to it. You know, Gene is Gene. He was a spoiled, you know, kid when he was small. He was an only child. So he thinks that the whole world revolves around him, and he's put that into his life ever since, you know. I mean, I've heard so many stories about this stuff. I mean, I've been following of late that Claudio series where he's talking to I forget his name now, the guy who did the album covers for them.
Dennis Willock.
Yeah, Dennis. I've been watching these religiously as part of my daily walks to get over the whole shadow situation. I do these huge walks in the morning and listen to a podcast. I've been listening to every single one of those. And I mean, some of the stories I hear about these guys, you know, it makes me wonder how they got anything done, or, you know, why somebody didn't punch them in the nose sometimes, because the way they operate, you know. But, you know, my opinion of people like, for example, Bruce has never changed. I've always loved Bruce Kulick. He's my favorite Kiss member, always has been, always will. I've met him several times at the NAMM conventions when I used to go like every year. And he's always been great. He's always had time to say hello and take pictures with me and talk and stuff like that. So I've always appreciated Bruce for that. I've never met Eric Singer or people like that, so I can't really have a, you know, more personalized opinion of it. But Ace is the funny one, because when I was younger and we were sort of, you know, in bands early on, I admit Ace was a person that I, you know, looked up to as a guitar player. He was cool, you know. He had those great pictures of him doing the Les Paul poses on stage and stuff. Just like, yeah, that's fucking great, you know. You wanted to be like that. And as you started hearing things and reading things and, you know, just digging in deeper on stuff, I mean, I sometimes think Ace is a bit oblivious to things. I mean, he like that latest clip that he just saw. Like, I know that, you know, as age comes on, you know, sometimes your skills get a little deteriorated, and I expect that. Like another guy I watched, Steve Howe, his guitar playing skills have kind of dropped over the couple of years, but that's to be expected as you get in your 80s, okay, and 70s. But I think Ace needs to, you know, keep an eye on this stuff. Like there's a clip of him talking about how Eddie Van Halen came to see him in Madison Square Garden, and he's kind of insinuating that the tapping thing Eddie got from him, and he started playing on his guitar, and it was the worst sounding dribble I had ever heard on guitar when he started playing. I'm thinking to myself, why would you show yourself in that situation? Like, I mean, talk about it. Don't go on there if you're not up to playing it. Like if you're not even practiced on it. I mean, it sounded terrible. I mean, I felt bad for him watching it, but that's never been Ace's thing though, too. It's, in defense of him, right? He's never been a big tapping guy too, right? But, I just think that sometimes he's in his own world, and, gotta love him or you gotta hate him, right? So, but that's how I kind of view things. I mean, my guy's always been Bruce, and that's that for me.
All right, this next one from Saint and Sinner 83. I think this is only for me. Dealing with Kiss fans on a forum like this as an admin, how has it affected your views on the Kiss fan base over time overall? I'm going to take the Fifth Amendment on that because you know what? It ties into the next one from Glasgow Kiss. And what was the moment when you felt like you were running this forum was the most worthwhile? And the "this is why I do it" epiphany. And on the other side of the coin, what was your biggest "what am I even doing this for"? Okay, first of all, I couldn't do it without the people who volunteered as mods over the years. And Rising Force is the last man standing and does an absolutely stellar job of keeping sanity, bringing order to chaos, and just such a massive help. But everyone who's helped along the way, thank you. Whether it was Tim doing the news, whether it was the other mods, Love Guns, Schaller. There have been a few over the years, so they have been a massive help. When is it the most worthwhile to have a message board and to host a KISS community? For me, it's when a nugget of information comes up in a conversation, and it's such a staggering nugget. It's something that the vast majority of people just never knew, including me. I learned something new, and that does happen. There was a thread a few years ago about Jack Starr and Virgin Steel, and some demos that Eric Carr had helped out in early 1981 with his then girlfriend, Pantera. And it was the son of one of the musicians looking for information about these demos that Debbie had done with probably Eric playing drums. And then I was going off and finding newspaper clippings, and James Lomenzo from White Lion was in the group that Debbie was playing in at the time, Hooker. Virgin Steel, of course, included, was it Damon DeFice? The brother of one of the people who died in the Gulliver's Fire in 1974 for Eric. So it was all these threads of really interesting things coming together at one time. Those are the threads. Being corrected by someone with something that we had made assumptions over is absolutely fantastic. That is always what it's about. Being corrected or having clarification brought to it. Why am I even doing this moment? And I guess it goes to people who participate in the board as well. Why am I even here? Always comes down to the chaos, because in any community where you're not able to euthanize the miscreants, they just keep coming back. There are no technical ways to keep people out who are intent on coming back with new guises, new emails, new ways of circumventing some of the protections. It does become withering. And it can become it has at times become, rather negative on mental health. There have been times where I did blow up the board once in 2006. I just got so fed up with it all. Just like, why am I doing this? Why am I paying? And that'll be a question that comes up a bit later. Let's move on. How do you stay sane? How do I stay sane? I do this with these guys. This is awesome. I mean, and that goes for all of you who are watching and have commented in the comments. That's what keeps me sane. I just really enjoy this. I'm writing something at the moment that I'm really enjoying writing, because we'll talk about it at some point, or it'll get published in a fanzine or some other form, and it'll garner conversation. What's the record for the longest thread on the FAQ? That's Spaceman Steiny. And I don't know. And was it about Vinny? Probably.
Probably, yeah.
It may have been Ace's anti-Semitism went pretty far. Some threads picking apart Paul go pretty far. I mean, there's a lot of threads that go too far. And, then they disappear into the ether.
I guess one of those Vinny Vincent ones when he came back might have been a long one, right?
Or and then there was the other one about Loomis. That was a big one too.
Oh yeah, the Loomis ones went way far. And so do some of the Magic ones. So
those are long.
Yes. So again, I don't have any easy way to go and find what the longest thread is on the FAQ, and I really don't know if I'd want to know, because I'd probably start reading it and sometimes I might even necro bump it just to make it a little longer. Let's see. Bruce with a question. Now that Kiss is retired, perhaps the most obvious trajectory for fandom is attrition. Thanks a lot, Bruce. Are there other possibilities that might thwart Kiss Army losses, like more conventions, tribute band, novelty exercises, or other fan base fairs? I'm not a businessman. I'm not in the music business where everything's a profit loss statement. There are people like Steve Sturwalt who've appeared on Three Sides and Peter Arquette and some of the other people who've been involved intimately in that kind of business. I don't know. From my perspective, do I want to go to something like the Indie Expo again in the format that it was the last time I attended one? And I can say that the answer is no, because all it was a glorified Spencer's merchandise crap with lines for photo ops and autographs. That to me isn't fun. The fun part is, again, hanging out with my fellow fans, talking, and meeting new people. Even better if they have no idea what the Kiss FAQ is and you just strike up a conversation with them. There's no preconceptions. You don't have usernames or any baggage to associate. You're just talking with some random person. Mark, I mean, what do you think about the future of fandom to mitigate attrition?
Well, I when I think back of the convention days when I was involved in it, I really enjoyed them, but they were a bit different than what the ones you're talking about now. Because when I was going back then, they had tables of like VHS tape people with bootlegs then. So you got to remember, this was like back in the 90s when I was going a lot, right? And they had, two cover bands. They would have like Kiss tribute bands, right? That would play one in the afternoon, one in the evening. And what was really cool about them and why I used to always go all the time is that they'd have actual like clinics. One of them was like, Bruce Kulick plays the guitar licks of Revenge. So I went there and he was there. He had like a little mixer, a DAT machine where he had all the backing tracks, and he would solo and do all the leads over the songs, and he would show what he did and how he got the sounds. And me and the other guitar players, we were on it. We were like right there sitting in the chair, like glued watching, And those are the things that I enjoyed a lot because, I'm being a guitar player, I loved watching that stuff. And apparently there were times when they did that similarly with drum stuff in Toronto, I remember as well. And, that's the kind of thing that I remember that kind of got me interested, because also as a musician, that sort of dragged in some of the other musicians, not just collectors, or like musicians. So I would find other fellow musicians from other bands that I would maybe, play with on the scene. I was like, hey, Tony, what's going on, buddy? And we start talking. And like you said, Julian, the hanging with the people, that's what this helped with. And meeting new musicians I got to meet there, that were into Kiss. And once you have that connection, I've gotten phone calls where it's like, hey, Mark, my band, my guitar player is sick. He broke his arm for 3 months. Can you come in and play guitar with us until he comes back? Like those kind of connections happen because of those things. Meeting them at these conventions and stuff like that, right? So I'm hoping that this kind of stuff continues, that there's some sort of place where Kiss fans can gather to do things, because what's left on that end really right now, I mean, there's no more concerts. There's no, special one-off, shows that are happening, at least not yet. Nothing's been announced. There's no, Las Vegas residencies or anything like that happening. So the only thing that we have to look forward to now as Kiss fans is when's the next, colored vinyl or picture disc going to come out. And that's about it right now. So it would be great if they started doing conventions again. I mean, the only thing is you'd probably have to start finding a different lure for people, because back in the day when I went, it was all about collecting the bootleg videotapes and stuff like that. Not that you can all get online now. So there's that part of it is lost. So,
Ken, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, there was talk earlier in this year about, I guess, feelers being put out there about doing another like Indianapolis Expo, or either doing it out there or in Vegas or something, or somewhere else. I don't know. I'm all for it. More so for if we get to see anybody, Kiss related. That we want to see or hear an interview or something like that. Maybe at some point, some of the conventions will go back to some of the way they were, in a way where people, Kiss was kind of ending. Kiss was kind of in a weird place when they started having those things, right? They were kind of on life support.
On hiatus
to a degree, right? And so the fans did their own thing and created the excitement themselves. So with these things, and then the people that a lot of Kiss fans started selling their things, the old stuff. So it'd be cool if maybe some people would be ready to get rid of some of their stuff and sell it and start doing that again. Will it happen? I don't know. But I think there's a possibility there that it would, and I think I'd go if there's another one of those Indianapolis things. I think I'd go. I have a lot more time now and stuff, so I think I would actually go. And again, like Jen said, and Mark, hanging out and talking Kiss with the fans is a real big part of it for me.
Yeah, Steve on the Three Sides episode did detail some of the financial challenges for doing it, and the costs have just gone up so exponentially in the years since the last expos that it would take a lot of backing scratch to put on an event and fly guests in. So maybe it is going to need to be grassroots, but you're still going to need to get event space, which is expensive. You're still going to have insurance. You're still going to have some form of entertainment or such that involves licensing. There's still a lot of money involved even to put on something basic. But that last expo, while there were a lot of lines, there were some cool things. Hanging out on stage with Mark Slaughter while he went over his FX Greg, with his pink Jackson double V was spectacularly cool. He's such a nice guy, unbelievable. And then of course the acts that Indy put together were always very good. Let's move on to this one's just for me. It's what poster has caused you the most headaches over the years. I'm not going to name them because I'm not going to give them any frickin' oxygen. But there have been some posters who've caused me a lot of grief over the years, including lawsuits. So we'll leave it at that. Woodworm. That last one, by the way, was by Ace Fan 1975. Woodworm 001. How do you pick the subjects for your books? One of your earlier books, that's one of my most recent books, was about Crazy Nights, which is my favorite album. But it's fair to say it wasn't very popular with Kiss fans in general, which it wasn't popular with me either. And that's probably why I did it. I like to take on failures. I would love to take credit for the solo albums project. I would love to take credit for Odyssey, but I'd be a liar. Those were Tim's concepts and ideas, so that's how those got picked. Crazy Nights I picked because I wanted to persuade myself it wasn't as bad as I thought it was when I listened to it in 1987. And I thought it also was a failure that didn't live up to the expectations. So that's a great one. Mass Hysteria, that comes along because of Tim's Odyssey. I wanted to do what led to that. And if I finish War Machine, which I am working on,
do it
as much as I said I'm not, is what comes after. so that they're all kind of connective, and they kind of work together. The Tor stuff that comes out repackaged every year as an encyclopedia is simply because that's an addiction. In the time since I published the 50th anniversary editions, I probably added 30 more reviews, more set lists, more details, more.
Wow.
I found more shows that were thought to have happened that are canceled. More corrections, more clarifications. It will never be done, whether it's me or someone taking over after I throw my hands up. So it's.
Julian said he likes to take on failures. That's why I'm sitting here on this show.
But I had to say, though, in support of that, I still to this day, at least once a week, pull out Peter, Paul, Gene, and Ace and read a chapter or two from that. Still read that. And Mass Hysteria is still one of my favorite books that Julian's ever done. I thought it was a just absolute blockbuster of a book. And if you don't own it, shame on you, because it is definitely one of the best books I've had. I mean, for the longest time, I was all about the Gene, Paul, Peter, Ace book, but the Mass Hysteria one, to me, is just as good. I get so much enjoyment from that. I always said, and this might sound sort of odd, but if a book makes it into I have a little magazine holder in my bathroom. So if it makes it into the bathroom there, that book,
reading.
you know it's good quality. For those long.
I've made it into Mark Shitter.
Yeah, exactly. If it's made it in there, it's good quality.
That's the gold standard. Love Guns asks, I got to answer Adrian's because obviously as a former mod and the guy who I really like, asks any word on a follow up to Mass Hysteria. No word. Again. War Machine's 250 pages as it stands. It's being worked on. There's too many gaps. There's a lot less gaps actually in the last month because I've had a break from the other project, which is of course Ace book, which continues to be worked on, and that one just continues to blow my mind. If we get there, when we get there, it really it's amazing, but that's just my opinion. I don't want to do too many of these that are all about me. But any plans about another Kiss album containing interviews with the engineers? That's a problem. That's actually a good one. We are so many decades past a lot of these albums. Corky Stasiuk, who would be the core to say Rock and Roll Over or Love Gun. Eddie Kramer's 80 something. Corky lost all his stuff in floods on the East Coast years back. A lot of people you talk to and they don't remember now. These albums were jobs for them. They don't remember specifics. You occasionally find people who are like an obscure second engineer, assistant engineer, the tape spool boy. And then you just, it gets to the point where it's like, why it becomes filler. You're trying to fill out. Now, I think there are books definitely about the Dynasty tour on its own. There's definitely a book around the Mark's favorite, the Destroyer tour, because that was their first complete change of how they were doing things. So there's plenty more books about Kiss, but they need to be done by people other than me with a different perspective.
But Julian, sorry, can I just ask you something? For example, I know that there was a time period when they did the Destroyer Resurrected. Remember when that time period when they did that album? That album was redone with Ezrin and a couple of assistant guys that were working out of his school. Because I know that because I was in Vancouver at the time with my friend working on some music on an album in Vancouver, and we were working in the same studio that was in that school that Ezrin owned, right? So he was working at, I know you just kind of mentioned it that you don't want to talk to the, seventh engineer, like tape op guy, but there are some people that were a lot younger than those guys that probably would know a hell of a lot more, that might know about some of the details about like Destroyer Resurrected, what they did, because I know those guys were like a little younger than me even. So maybe those guys might be worth getting a hold of as well, or people that were involved with, like Sonic Boom or Monster, because like Greg Collins, those guys, aren't those guys, they're way younger than Ezrin and all those guys, right?
Yeah, there aren't enough people for those, in my opinion.
Okay.
Now, Psycho Circus even with Bruce Fairbairn gone, there are enough archival interviews. You'd have to license, because you need the full damn interviews with them for that. But, everyone is still around. I think. I can't think of anyone else.
Platnikoff guy, isn't he still around? I think.
Yeah. So, a lot of the engineers up in Canada and at the other studios, and there's a lot more information now around it. But again, I think other people need to pick up the gauntlet and ask Ken what he wants, so that you can really just, create.
Yes.
Ken, make your order what you want to read.
Well, I know Eddie Kramer he was supposed to do a book, right? An autobiography or something,
Probably is.
A
lot of these guys are working on books.
I thought it was going to be out like a year ago or something, but it hasn't come out yet. But I know he was working on it, so hopefully we get something there.
All right, so this is a good one we can all take, and Ken, you go first on it. What do you think was a bigger mistake? Not having It's My Life on Creatures, or not having Sword and Stone on Crazy Crazy Nights?
It's My Life on Creatures. I've said that a number of times. I think that's the one. Sword and Stone is, it's a cool song, but it's not going to make that. It would make Crazy Nights better, but not that much better because of Crazy Nights production, in my opinion.
I also thought that there was a third one that should be thrown into that consideration, but I can't remember what it is right now. Mark?
Probably Gene's.
Honestly, I kind of, and as much as Ken is, a good friend, and I consider him family now. I don't agree with that comment, because while I love It's My Life, I think it's an amazing song. We have so many opportunities to listen to it, whether it's Wendy O. Williams doing it, whether it's bonus tracks on Kiss, releases or something like that, where they have these versions of it. But Sword and Stone, I think there's very little of that song around, I think. But I think that song would have really made Crazy Nights that much more, more appealing, I think. Because that song, I've really liked that song. I think if it got a little bit of the Nevison, treatment to it, I don't think it would have made it terribly worse. I think maybe it might have made it a little bit more, more appealing for that time period. I mean, I think the problem with this is that we sometimes forget what was hip and happening during that time period, because we're so stuck in our time now. And when we kind of go back, our history isn't that clear of what was hip and what was so awesome. Like, Ultimate Sin and like those Heart records and all those things that Nevison was doing back then. Those are big records, man. People were listening to those records. That production style was not poo-pooed on, Yeah, but people would have been poo-pooing on Kiss at that time still, no matter who friggin' produced that stuff. They were working their way back up. They were working their way up still at that time, So I don't think it would have made a squat of difference who produced it. But I like Sword and Stone. It's My Life. For me, Crazy Nights is a brilliant record. I think it doesn't need anything else for it to be a 10-star record, in my opinion, that album. But
maybe
I wouldn't have protested if it was on there. But
maybe It's My Life should have been on Asylum, Mark.
Well, there you go. Maybe or a different record, Yeah. Or if it could have made it on Animalized, man, that would have really helped it. Yeah.
He placed one of the other Gene songs on there.
Yeah.
Not Burn Bitch Burn. Guess I like that one.
No, not that one. Like maybe like Murder in High Heels or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. See, we agree.
Creatures of the
That
Night
would have improved the album quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just that one song.
Creatures of the Night did not need It's My Life.
Yeah.
Nor did Lick It Up. So I think by that logic, my logic, Sword and Stone would have helped Crazy Nights more, and it needed something like that. If you listen, same goes for Dial for Love. If you hear it, compare it to some of Gene's crappy songs, get rid of Thief in the Night, which was a recycle anyway, and replace it with Sword and Stone, or even It's My Life. Throw it on to Crazy Nights. I know they were thinking about it later on, again, revisiting, and I know that Black and Blue cut a version of it. I can't remember if that's 86, 87. I think it's 87. So around that time. So that would have been the time to recycle that one. Lick It Up doesn't need it. Lick It Up's perfectly, a perfectly
Strong,
butchered
yeah.
steak. Yeah. But the one I was thinking of was actually Nobody's Perfect. The original form should have been on Animalize or Asylum. It dates from that period, and it's a stronger song melodically for Gene than quite a lot of his contributions were. And you were absolutely right, Ken. It was a Gene song I was thinking of. So thank you.
I knew it.
All right. John Burglas, pardon me. Julian, my best friend, please answer me this, my Kiss-loving brother. With such an elegant intro, I've got to. During the time this board has been active, have you ever been formally contacted by someone within the band's envelope in regards to a post, rumor, photo, or link that's been posted here? And can you share any details of such interactions? No, I can't. Well, let's see. I have had certain posts drawn to my attention, but it's more often been by super fans who kind of rotate in that realm, and it's like, hey, have you seen this? And I don't need to be told that it needs to go, because I've always tried to operate the board with a bit of common sense. Yeah, is it censorship? If you want to call it that, call it that. But I'm the one who's gotten cease and desist. I'm the one who's gotten sued. So yeah, Ace Frehley's camp back in Anomaly cease and desisted me. I can't find the letter, unfortunately, which I'm very disappointed, because I really collect all that shit. Because someone had posted a link to another site posting a link to Anomaly.
Oh, okay.
It's not on my site, and they had accused me of piracy.
That's bullshit.
So but again, it's also ignorance. So I get that. And, I've been sued by photographers and agencies over things that have been posted on the board. And, the vast majority of the times it's fair use and caveats around the DCMA, or the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which I've been able to avail myself. Have I escaped all of the legal impacts of the board? No, that comes with the territory. And that's really all I want to say about that. What was your first fandom, musically speaking? I really don't have any. I don't remember. I loved Space 1999 back when I was little.
But he said musically speaking.
Oh, musically, Beatles and John Lennon.
Makes sense.
Always and forever. That'll be my happy place to go to. I was.
I thought you were saying "Always and Forever," the song, which is a Heatwave song.
So, Julian, what album from the Beatles was your entry point with them?
Yeah.
It would have been Rubber Soul.
That's a good one.
Good album.
Yeah, because again, these are my parents were Liverpudlian on the scene in Liverpool. My mom was a nurse there. She was from Wallasey. And they courted, while the Beatles were, in the clubs.
Yeah,
they didn't go see the Beatles in the clubs. So we had a few Beatles albums. My mom's into Anne Murray, Crystal Gale, and big on classical and trad jazz. That was more their scene. But we had Rubber Soul. We had Magical Mystery Tour. We had Sgt. Pepper's, Imagine, Shaved Fish from Lennon. And then there were the collection of Beatles dance songs.
Oh, yeah.
The psychedelic cover, or what it was. And I think they also had Hey Jude, and obviously the Red and Blue albums. So that was
McCartney?
Yeah, the Red and Blue.
We had... I only remember having one McCartney album. Back in those days, and it was Venus and Mars.
Venus and Mars. Okay.
Which to this day is, again, all of those songs and those albums. We didn't have any Rolling Stones because we were from up north. Those were Southern pushers. So I didn't get into the Stones until way later. That was my music. When I started discovering other shit, it was, I think, 7th grade was Duran Duran. You know, Seven and the Ragged Rio,
Yeah.
all that, Girls on Film, all that stuff caught. It was catchy. Men at Work, and then 83, Def Leppard, Quiet Riot. So
Yeah.
84,
Interesting.
Aerosmith. So I was into all that stuff before Kiss.
Awesome.
Mark, we'll keep this truncated. Try not to be as long as so we can get to more questions. What was your first fandom, musically speaking?
I'll make it short. It was Rush. Rush was my introductory to music. I heard it on my sister's turntable, Exit Stage Left, and that was it. It was my introductory to music, and it all went, from there.
Ken, how about you? Your first musical?
I'm just gonna say, I used to get I loved Elvis. I still do, but I would say an early just like single I bought. One of my first singles I bought 45s was Indian Reservation by Paul Revere and the Raiders. They call them the Raiders.
Yeah.
Yep.
Paul Revere. But I love that song. And then I bought other early stuff like the Raspberries Go All the Way was a very early single I bought on 45, and then I finally started buying albums, so other bands and groups. But I grew up listening to heard Beatles and Beach Boys mostly in the 60s from my older sister, so I heard that. So it was like automatic.
Lots of good music. I'm still discovering new music that was released in 1983.
Oh yeah,
is one of the recent discoveries.
Good stuff.
Great band. Vinny Poncia's Tape Up. You talked to everyone for the solo albums book. Did you reach out to Bill Scheineman, and how come he wasn't featured? To the audience, he played the bell on Fractured Mirror and was the one sent down to get a song. Sent downtown to get a song. He picked Near Crew. Well, there'll be corrections to that whole stream coming in Ace book. Number one, Tim did most of the interviews for the solo albums book, so ask Tim. And again, it goes back to not everyone could be found. I don't remember whether he was even on the list. You got to figure if the Odyssey project in Novelder 2012 had the guy who built the door, then surely the solo albums project would have had the bell. It's just one of those things. So sorry, I don't have an answer for that. What exactly does maintenance include, and sometimes requires a shutdown of the site for a short period of time? And I think KissFAQ, who asked that, was asking that because it leads to withdrawal symptoms when the board is unavailable. Sometimes, and I'll be completely honest about it, I get completely pissed off at the tone of the board and how topics are going, that there seems to be a bit of a bitch fest, negativity, anal chaffing, that I put it on timeout for my own sanity. It's a pressure release valve. Say for
I'm just gonna say you use God mode at that point.
Oh, I all the cheat codes, God mode. No, it's a preventative measure to keep me from deleting the site. So I do it for that reason. But usually you can tell if it's coming. You can kind of get the feeling that I'm pissed off, fed up, because you can still read, I think, the topics unless I purge the cache and log out all sessions as well. Other times I do it simply when I'm doing a software upgrade. It's just better practice to put it in maintenance mode, boot everyone out, purge the cache, run the updates, and hope that everything works. So that's that. What has been your this is St. Louis Blue. What has been your biggest disappointment, fail for the band, and why? It could be individual member specific or the band as a whole. Ken, why don't you get us started?
The biggest fail?
Biggest fail. Focus.
I don't know. What?
All right, Mark, you go.
I don't know.
Ken, you think about it. We'll get back to you.
Honestly, I think that the biggest fail, I think that for me at least, was the Carnival of Souls thing for me, because I know when like I said before, when Revenge came out, I was really surprised and impressed with that record when it came out. And I remember my friend Ted, who I was good friends with, he had tickets to go to the the club date when they were doing the club run for Revenge before it came out in Toronto, and he got me a bootleg video of it, and I thought it was just absolutely fantastic, and the tour, it didn't do that hot because of what the climate of the music scene at that point was switching, as we know, at that time. So it didn't appeal much to that area of music. But I was hoping when I heard through the grapevine that they had another record and they were working on it and there was something coming out, that it was going to be on the same sort of level of it. And you got to understand, I did not like the whole grunge period. I had a personal hatred for that time period because I thought a lot of those bands like Nirvana and these bands were killing the bands that I had loved. And we're seeing, like, just 2-3 years ago, playing in a huge, outdoor venues and stuff like that, summer concerts, and these bands couldn't draw anything now because all of a sudden it was deemed not cool to like those bands anymore. It's cooler to like these shitty bands, with their denim jackets and these other kind of like unhip looking guys, like Soundgarden and these bands. So I had a real problem with that. So when they came out with Carnival of Soul, and there was some similarities to some of the grunge movement music in there, I was not pleased with that. I thought for sure this is another example of them following the trends instead of being the trend, And I always, that was always my problem with Kiss, is that why are you trying to follow? Just do your thing. I mean, AC/DC never steered off their path ever on there. Sure, they became unpopular, maybe not as popular as before, but they stuck to their guns, and those guys now can play anywhere they want and still fill up things. It's just a matter of being patient and staying your course and being true to yourself. Lemmy said that. The one line from Lemmy that I'll always remember is he says, "I can wake up every morning, look myself in the mirror, and have no problems with who I am." And amen to Lemmy for that.
Cool.
All right, Ken, you've had time to think.
Yeah, and thinking about it.
Sorry.
There's been a lot of fails. I mean, come on.
Ken's the Paul Stanley of this podcast. He thinks about his answers before he answers.
Yeah, you got to think now. But there's been a lot of fails. Just the one thing I just as another just crazy, ridiculous thing is I just thought was like, what are you doing? There's the playing for in Australia for the Sharks thing, and they're on that boat, the skipper and Gilligan are piloting the boat and stuff. But anyway, it's just the three of them. Was it Paul wasn't there, right?
Paul was sick.
No.
Paul was sick, and even when he was sick, well, I don't think he was sick. I think he knew what that was, and
he had an attack. I'm not fucking doing this.
I'm not going to do this. This is BS, because they're on the back of that boat in a little rinky-dink area and have a couple little smoke things going off, and they're kind of cruising. I'm like, what? That's so stupid. What are you doing? It didn't make any sense. And do the Sharks care? I don't think so. But anyway, that thing is just a joke.
Yeah. I think my biggest fail goes back to my earliest time as a Kiss fan, and is simply Crazy Nights. Again, that really hurt me badly as, coming off Asylum and then hearing that we're taking 2 years to do an awesome album and then that hitting. And I just remember the shock and awe of just the shittiness at the time of listening to that on a Walkman. I think I went down to Music City and got it on a bus. The final word. What is the one elusive interview you still want to land? The next one. My interviewing these days is kind of in a weird place. I do interviews by necessity. I used to email Vinny Poncia every year, and I gave up. Other people managed to get him and get some, interesting stuff, and they're as smart or smarter than me. Some even aren't as smart, but they still ask some good questions. So, I'll take interviews that I can get, but that doesn't really matter. I want to think more about what it's like after the interview. was it good for you? Was it good for me? Yeah, who are? It's about the content, because if you just think about, oh, I have to have this person, they're a collection item on a shelf, oh, I've got them and added them to the collection, that's not really the right way to look about it. It's about purpose. Live 2 side 4, Julian, why did you live all places all over the world? Because I had choice and I didn't have choice. So what details can you share about purchasing the music video? That I overpaid, that it had already been seen by many people, that there was never a chance of it being burned, and it certainly wasn't the only copy of the tape. And I don't regret it, because obviously its purpose tied in with the Odyssey book and promoting it, and it took better people than me, the Kiss My Wax guys, who bought it from me, to share it, because I wasn't going to do that in totality. So congratulations to those guys, the real fans, rather than the guy who was pimping a book.
I remember you playing that video during the LA Kiss Expo thing where we got the photo op or whatever with meet and greet with Peter Criss at that thing. I remember you playing that on your.
I had the anti-record screen as well, so people.
Yeah, it was just playing in the background, behind us,
Yeah, and someone came up to me and said, "Oh yeah, Kurt's been showing that to me, for years. That." It's
like, oops,
you know what? That didn't bother me.
I never saw it until then.
That's par for the course. Some people got to see it, other people had seen it, and now everyone's seen it. So, yeah. There's a good one we can all do. You've got the loan of a time machine to go back to one gig of any band of your choice. Who, what, where, and why?
Any band of your choice?
This is any band. Oh boy, that's going to be really tough. Mark, which Rush show are you going to?
Well, I think I've talked about this once before. For me, it's pretty simple. I mean, the two bands I love live as live acts are Rush and Yes, but it's going to be Rush, obviously, because Rush is my favorite band. For me, the album, like for example, the album that's always had the biggest effect on me, and that I still listen to this day, is All the World's a Stage. For me personally, if I could go back to 76 and be at Massey Hall on whatever, any of those 3 shows, night 1, night 2, or night 3, and be there for that, because on headphones and in my basement with all the lights off, turned up nice and loud, it's fantastic. It's always something that makes my heart happy and feeds my soul. But to be there, having been to Massey Hall and seeing other bands perform there, knowing how great the sound is there, I could only imagine a very young and hungry Rush in 76, how that would have sounded like. So that would be my answer for you.
All right, Ken, because I need time to think. What about you?
Mozart? No, wait, that's too far back. No, that would probably be pretty dang good. Cool. I'm gonna have to pick Kiss, even though we saw. I've seen a lot of Kiss, but I haven't seen a lot of early Kiss. I didn't start until 79. I think there's a couple of them. One is like the Winterland one. I wish I was there in that club in San Francisco. That would have been just so awesome to see that one. Another one would have been maybe 77 at the Cow Palace on the day Elvis died. That one would have been a cool concert to see too. That period, because that's when I got into them around that year. So those are the couple that I would like.
All right, this is tough because I almost want to be pretentious, and I also want to be real. But I think the Beatles in Hamburg.
Oh wow, yeah, that would
with Pete Best and Stuart Sutcliffe.
A bunch of drunk people.
Oh wow, okay, that's way back.
People in the bar.
Yeah, no, and when they were a black leather clad, punky, Liverpudlians interpreting Americans interpreting, black music, rock band. You know, I would just love to see that sort of set, just because of the historic importance of it, because of so much comes from it, and it's so connected in terms of going back to the 50s and Buddy Holly and Little Richard and all the music that to everything we listen to today just permeates the layers underneath. And then, you know, it's easy to you know, look at some of the historic Kiss days. I think Kiss, if I could go to one show, it's going to be Finsbury Park, 1997, the last show of the reunion, the one that I had tickets for, where my fucking car broke down. I want to make good on that nightmare if I get to go back in a time machine, because I don't have the context for any other Kiss ones, you know. Let's do a couple more and then we'll wrap up. What are the odds that Kiss will find an archivist who will work on rare material and live material the way that Metallica's and the Grateful Dead do, and ensure that the material gets out? Well, I think number one is the problem that there's not as much material as we think there is, certainly not to the level of a band like the Grateful Dead or Metallica, who did extensively record a lot of stuff. I think number two, that Universal at least has a very good archivist and team involved in that area of things, but there are limitations because of the business relationship between the label and the artist that aren't so much of a hindrance. You know, I mean, Metallica clearly doesn't have those same logistical, legal, political, whatever issues, nor do the Grateful Dead. So again, I'll take any crumbs, and I think any of us would. Kiss Scandinavia again. Do you own any ultra rare video material from the Creatures or Asylum tours that only you or just a very few Kiss fans have in your collections? This is a good one to answer, but not answer. I don't think talking about anything that may exist or not exist anymore makes any sense, because people get all worked up and pissed off and start screaming hoarder, 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 like some entitled child, when there's much more to the whole equation than that. And you don't want to be a tease as much as you also want to inform. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You want to inform and explain what is out there and what exists and what there may be a chance of everyone seeing, but it's not as easy as that, especially when, you know, thousands or tens of thousands of dollars are involved. And if it's not your money, I'm sure it's an easy thing to say, give it to me. But when it is your money or there is a contract involved, it's a completely different matter. So that's fine. Oh, that takes us pretty much. Oh wait, no. Why can't loyal Kiss fans donate to the KissFAQ to help
that one.
the running of the site? I'm in no way suggesting there should be different levels of fandom. I won't read the rest of it, but that was by Woodworm 001 as well. I did actually implement a different pay level for the board, but I never put it into production. I decided that upping kind of any visibility of the FAQ being a business outside of the books, which whether they break even being the goal or what, just puts me on too much of a financial generating level, and I want to not go to that realm. The moment I charge people membership or allow them to make donations, there's a sense of something is now owed. You're paying for something more than someone else, therefore you're not equal, whether or not it's done by you know, any of that. That's why we don't do a Patreon for this podcast. We don't even, I think we have merch, but it doesn't even sell because we don't exactly pimp it. I think it's just better that the board is fully available. All the good stuff goes into the general Kiss discussion, and all the other things are behind membership. So if you want to read about Kiss FAQ fans talking about sports, movies, other topics, then you can join, and there is no charge. Now, unfortunately, sometimes fans' memberships do lapse, but that's a completely kind of necro banning type of thing. So, you know, I wouldn't be comfortable in doing membership packages or anything like that, because if I did get hit by a bus or blow up the site or just walk off into the sunset because I've had enough and I want to go sit under a tree in Hawaii, then it wouldn't be fair to have any strands of owing anyone anything. Calvin Richards. Did Michael Brandvold save Kiss podcasts? No. The listeners saved Kiss podcasts.
Yeah.
That's
And
true.
we
Yeah, the
thank you
listeners.
all for listening to whatever podcast you listen to. We thank you for commenting on those podcasts wherever you listen to them, whether it's on the FAQ threads, whether it's on Facebook threads for the different shows, whether it's participating in live streams like this and commenting. It is about you guys and that we are all part of the same community. No one saved it. We wouldn't be here other than for KISS. But because of KISS, we've made a lot of friends. We've discovered a whole lot of different music. And in the case of some of us, we make music with people that we've met because of this crazy interweb. Ken.
Yeah, this is all about the KISS fan. These KISS podcasts, which there are so many now, I do check them out. I do check out these other ones too that are out there. Or even sometimes appear on one here and there, but they're all about the fans and all about just enjoying the band itself. I mean, that's all it is about. It's just a community of fans, and we're just out there, lucky to talk with each other, and then you can join in on the conversation or listen to the conversation, and you don't have to watch, and you know.
And there's a fast forward button.
Yeah, you can skip through my monologue.
Yeah.
Or you can, do whatever. But it's all, you get to pick your subject. It's sometimes you may not like the subject of the current certain episodes. Then there's certain ones you like. Maybe you like the album ones or the death matches or who knows what, anything. To each their own, and you just have fun with it.
Mark, final words to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have a great love of these podcasts, not just ours, obviously, but I mean, I'll never forget when I broke my leg way, way, way back, and I was in hospital for 3-4 months trying to figure out how to walk again. One of the things I discovered was Podcast with Ken Mills and Gary Schaller. And I was listening to those guys from the very beginning. I mean, from the very beginning to up to about, I don't know, like 150 of their episodes recorded on CD with my own personally made covers that I made for each one of them in my closet over there, like a pile of this on CD of all their episodes that they had, because I loved listening to them, and that got me hooked on it. Then I started listening to Three Sides. Then I discovered the KissFAQ when that started happening, and it went on from there. I mean, and then my love of podcasting. Yes, Kiss 3 Science Theater as well. Thank you. Yep. That was another one I was right into as well. I was listening to that one as well. But then my love of podcasting in general started up, and after being on here and meeting you guys and giving me the courage to kind of tackle this sort of media, I went and joined the Yes Music podcast one, and that's been a great connection for me as well. Totally different sort of musical thing and stuff like that over there, but just as crazy people over there as there are here, so don't think it's any easier over there. But I love doing the podcast, and I think the podcasts are very good for connecting, for meeting people. I mean, thanks to some of these podcasts, you get to meet musicians and do musical stuff like Julian mentioned. I mean, I got Billy Shearwood from Yes, to play on one of my records. I mean, if I wasn't involved with these kind of podcasts, I would never have been able to do it to do that, And that was a big thing for me, having him on one of my records. I love Yes, and so that was a big thing. And would I like to have somebody from Kiss on there? Yeah. I'd like to have someone on there. Maybe have Bruce do a solo on a Project Gemini song. That'd be awesome if that ever happened.
Cool.
Yeah. So you never know, but because the involvement of this and people hearing me just say that right now, who knows? Maybe it will travel through the airwaves and maybe it'll get to somebody. If it does, it's great. If it doesn't, then great too, right? But you don't know unless you try, right? And having a podcast and doing this stuff leads to opportunities, I think.
Yep, more fun than Tinder. And let's give a shout out to the Mighty Kiss Room, Decibel Geek, Ages of Rock, Rock and or Roll was a great one back in the day. I don't know if BJ's still doing that. Podcast Rot City. There's a ton.
Podcast Rock City, like you said. I think there's a Kiss Army Nation. There's a shout out Loudcast. And by the way, on that one, they have a book out where a lot of people contributed
stories and stuff.
Stories or reviews on all the songs of Kiss, and there's a lot of stuff. And I think that's going to be available on Amazon this next month, next week sometime, like 26th or something like that.
Sweet.
Very cool. All right. Well, that's the show for this week. That's a bunch of the topics. If I didn't read your topic, there were a few that I deemed I didn't want to approach. And I do apologize for the fact if you were censored and didn't get to ask your question. But it is always fun to do these. So we will probably do it again. But for now, that's it. So from Mark, Ken, myself, the rest of the team, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ Message Board and discuss the topic we broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.